Good evening. Good evening, everyone. There it goes. Good evening, everyone. We're going to start our presentation here shortly. If you could find a seat, and we'll pull out some more chairs if we need to. Thank you. All right, thanks everyone. Can you hear me okay in the back? Yeah, good, thank you. Good evening again. Thank you so much for taking the time to be here tonight for our public meeting for the Beach Boulevard Infrastructure Resiliency Project. My name's Katie DeLue, and I'm with a firm called Kearns & West, part of the consultant team, and I'll be facilitating the meeting tonight. With me tonight, we have members of the project team who I think many of you have probably already talked to, both from the city and from the consultant team. And we also have two of our council members with us tonight, Mary Beer and Christine Bowles. And I'd like if they could say a few words to us this evening.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. Thank you for being here tonight. My name is Mary Beer. I'm on your city council. And Christine and I, Councilmember Bowles and I, are on the ad hoc committee to help with public outreach for this project. And I think it worked because y'all are here. And so we did our job for there. It's really important that we're all here together tonight to talk about the Beach Boulevard Infrastructure Resiliency Project. It's a very important project. We're on phase 2A, and that will be explained to you later. Tonight is an opportunity for you to get information and to be able to talk with our city staff and the consultants. And so that part's really important because you can have one-on-one time with both of the city staff and the consultants. And so while I'm talking about them, I will introduce some of them. And we have our Director of Public Works, Lisa Peterson. We have Roland Yip, who is the Deputy Director of Public Works / City Engineer, which means he does two jobs. So be nice to him. We have David Harvey, the Assistant Engineer. All right, and then we have our consultants. So from GHD, we have Aaron and Nick. From ESA, we have Louis and Eli. Oh, they're not here. Okay, well, that's okay. And then from Kearns & West, we have Katie, Matt, Marlis, and Jennifer. And so please take the time to talk with them. We're really happy that you're here. Christine's going to give you some opening comments. And so I really was just here to welcome everybody, and I'm going to hand it over to Christine.
Thanks. Hi, good evening, and really thank you all for taking time out of your busy evening tonight to be here for this really important project discussion. As Mary said, I'm Christine Bowles. I'm newly elected to the City Council this year for District 2, which happens to include the northern end of Sharp Park, most of the seawall, as well as Esplanade, where we've already tragically lost housing to sea level rise and bluff erosion. We know that the effects of climate change are the scariest and most difficult issues challenging our city today, threatening our neighborhoods, businesses, roads, and sewers, as well as the existence of our beaches and habitats. All five of us on council really wanted to be here tonight, and when I say we all represent each of you, despite being elected to different districts, no matter where you live, but we're limited to two of us here today because of legal restrictions. I want to tell you that in our goal setting earlier this year, the council unanimously prioritized this project, as well as the completion of our local coastal plan. We're also fully committed to public engagement and to improving communication with you and with the agencies responsible for permitting these projects. As part of this project, we've also added office hours with our consultants, so if any of you have specific technical questions, that is the avenue for that. And just so you understand, this is a process that's going to take several years to complete in the design and permitting process. And the consultants aren't ready to answer all of our questions now. They're still working on their detailed engineering and so forth. For example, I want to understand what potential impacts the project could have to the Shoreview neighborhood in the north and to the berm in Sharp Park, which is protecting homes also. And I'm told that that will come in the next phase of environmental design. So the consultants will talk a little bit more about the schedule and the next phases to come after the one we're working on now. And just want to say, it's so important that we come together as a community to engage and be respectful to each other and have honest dialogue. For inspiration, I wanted to share a newly invented word from a recent community art project at the Sanchez Art Center that was designed to help us in these difficult conversations. The exhibit was called Sea Change. And the word I wanted to read today is called weedapting. The definition is a community coming together through dialogue and problem solving for long-term planning to adapt to extreme storms, sea level rise, or other extreme weather events caused by climate change. A coming together for mutual protections. An openness of a community to weather difficult discussions around triggering topics. This includes long-term planning for both private homes and city infrastructure, recognizing both are essential components of a successful community. I thought that was beautiful. So if we dare to listen and ask good questions today, talk to our excellent design team and engineers that are here, I'm certain that we can find win-win solutions that protect all of us and the future of this beautiful town. So thank you again for being here.
Thank you, council members. Really appreciate you being here and supporting us tonight. So we're going to move into the presentation. I'm going to review our meeting objectives really quick here for you all. And I think you have an agenda in front of you that you can follow along with these objectives there as well. So tonight we're here to provide a project overview and recap of phase 1. We want to introduce phase 2 of the project, which is what we're entering right now, and that includes the preliminary design process for that phase and future public engagement opportunities. And then we also want to provide opportunities for you all to engage with city staff and the consultant team, which now you know who all of us are, and you can tell we have our name tags on, so we're ready to talk with you one-on-one and are eager to hear your questions and input. In terms of the agenda, we started at 6. We have already had the first half an hour of open house format, and I hope that you've been able to talk with folks and provide your input and ask your questions. We're here in the 6:30 time slot for the presentation while we're going to review the background of the project, recap phase 1, and provide an overview of phase 2A. And then when the presentation is complete, around 7 o'clock, we're going to move back into the open house format. And I want to make clear that we're not going to do a facilitated Q&A here tonight in this group setting because we really want to be able to have one-on-one conversations with you and understand your input and what questions you have. So I encourage you really to come back and talk to staff. There's a bunch of us here tonight ready to talk with you and capture your input. We have flip charts going over in this corner of the room. We have aerials over there as well where we're looking for your input on specific locations for different amenities. So I'm eager to get all of that from you after we have the presentation. And then just prior to 7:30, when we adjourn the meeting, I'm going to reconvene us all, and I will summarize what we're hearing from folks at different stations, so you can hear kind of the summary of what's been happening all around the room and the conversations that we're having. And then I'll run through next steps for what happens next in the project. And with that, I will hand it over to Roland to run us through an overview of the project. If those in the back want to sit, there's still some seats available in the front if anyone wants to come up here too.
Oh yeah, there's some people pointing to the empty seats around here. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us in this community meeting. I am taking over as the project manager from Ryan Marquez, who has led several of the previous community meetings. He's starting another position in the city of Foster City. So I'm also new here. It's been roughly around 6 months since I started at the city of Pacifica. So yeah, I'd like to go over the overview of the Beach Boulevard Infrastructure Resiliency project with everyone today. So starting with the project location and extents, the project is located in the northern Pacifica on the western edge of the historic West Sharp neighborhood and is assessing the entire span of the current infrastructure and seawall, including these 4 areas. So these 4 areas are separated based on the different features and conditions of the wall. So starting with the northern wall, and this is the wall that is in the worst condition at the moment, is experienced several failures in the past couple of years. And you can see it from some of the patchwork that is on the wall currently, that is currently in not in the best condition. And then the pure wall system, that is the middle of the wall right there by Santa Rosa Avenue. And you can see as you look towards the middle of the wall over there that the sheet piles are eroding and corroding, and it's exposing a lot of the concrete in the back of the wall. And on to the next one, south of Santa Rosa is the south wall. And that wall is in better condition than the north wall. And then lastly, there's a gap and a portion of the wall that does not exist at the moment as south of Elder Lane. So the project goals is to replace the current seawall and outdated infrastructure, is to build climate resilience into one of the most vulnerable segments of the city's shoreline, to improve access and use of the Beach Boulevard Promenade, and to create a benefit solution to protect public infrastructure, recreational activities, homes, businesses, and the community at large from further coastal erosion impacts. So I'm going to pass it over to Aaron from GHD, who will go over the background for phase 1.
Thank you, Roland. Good evening. My name is Aaron Holloway. I'm a coastal engineer with a consulting team, GHD. I was involved in phase 1, and so I have some background of the project through a couple years of that work, and looking forward to carrying things forward. So phase 1 was really focused in a couple different items. First was data collection. We collected topographic data, some geotechnical investigations, and just kind of a lot of background information on the shoreline, the geology, coastal morphology. And that shaped the multi-hazard risk assessment, was just understanding the hazards that are out there today and the hazards expected over the next 100 years. And so from that, it looked at kind of the consequences. So what if nothing was done? What is the cost of the damage to property, to infrastructure, to the resources? And as a result of that, the team developed alternatives. So there were several alternatives evaluated against different criteria and scored. And so the first alternatives analysis identified seawall, beach nourishment, and rock revetment as all having their merits. And so as a result of that, pieces of those alternatives were combined to create the hybrid alternative, which was then advanced for council approval as the preferred concept. So the hybrid involves a seawall, a deep foundation seawall at the back end, some rock revetment, which would be smaller in scale than what's out there today, and then some beach nourishment, which is sand, cobble, natural materials brought in to kind of nourish the system and restore some of the sand that's been lost over the years. And so that's kind of the basic 3 elements of the hybrid alternative. And so moving ahead, let me see what we got. So the main outcome of phase 1 was identifying that alternative. And so as we move forward into phase 2, it'll be kind of really detailing out how does that alternative change against different parts of the shoreline. Are there opportunities for slightly different strategies? Does the seawall get smaller in one area? Does beach nourishment get bigger? Does the rock size change? That's part of what we're looking at. And so the pie graph here on the chart is interesting. I think it mirrors a lot of the feedback I heard today just standing at my station, was that in April 2021, we had a workshop where we presented the results of the alternatives. What you see here is the attending members voted on what alternative they liked the best. What we see here is the hybrid received the most amount of votes, but it wasn't even half of the total vote count. So there's not a consensus, there's not a unanimous idea to move forward. I hear a lot of different thoughts, concerns, and issues from the community, and we're really working hard to address a lot of those. Some of them were addressed in phase 1, but not all of them. So we're going to be taking those into account as we work through phase 2A. After phase 2A, we would start the environmental document, where really you do a thorough analysis of impacts and come up with alternatives to mitigate impacts. So while we are presenting kind of the preferred concept, we're still kind of in the early phase. And so there's still a lot of work to do to address the concerns brought up here today, and including those mentioned by Councilmember Bowles. So I still think this meeting poll is useful because it depicts kind of like the cross-section of input we've heard from the community. So in phase 2A, as Katie mentioned, we're trying to get to a preliminary design, which in engineering speak, we call that 35% complete plans. What that means is that we know kind of the scale, size, and general cost of some of the major items of the project. And to do that's basically what you need to start the environmental process. You got to know what you're building, how long is it going to take to build, what materials are we going to build with, how are we going to build it, what type of impacts can we expect, and then you can really do the thorough analysis. And so that's really what we're working on here through this process. Upcoming workshops, we'll get into more details about like the technical analysis of kind of the seawall structure, some of the beach nourishment feasibility modeling that's been going on. So we're not quite there yet, but yeah, we'll be looking at a lot of those challenges. So the 35% plans, we'll be looking at the seawall height. So how high is the seawall in its current location? Is it a few feet higher? Is it the same? Is it lower? Is it in its same position? Or is it relocated further landward? Those are some of the things we'll be looking at in this phase. I'm going to turn it over now to Katie to kind of walk through the phase 2A engagement strategy. And I look forward to talking to you more in the second part.
Thank you. So in terms of the community engagement strategy for phase 2A, we have some objectives here, and those are to engage with people of Pacifica to build a broad understanding of the project's purpose and scope, as well as opportunities for participation. The second is to provide multiple meaningful opportunities to participate in the project development process and to be able to provide input. And we recognize that there are challenges with schedules and different communication preferences that different people have. So we're offering a variety of ways to engage, which I'll run through those on the next slide. And finally, we're aligning engagement opportunities with key project milestones and deliverables to ensure that we can incorporate what we hear from you to the extent feasible, both within the schedule of the technical team's work and in terms of the topics that we're seeking input on. And so here are the types of engagement and communication tools that we're planning to use in this phase of work. Some of them listed on the left here are ones that we incorporated as part of phase 1 of the project that were successful. So things like public meetings, like the one we're having here tonight, informational and communication tools, such as fact sheets and our project website, convening the ad hoc subcommittee, which is the committee that our council members who are with us here tonight are part of, and then continued engagement with the regulatory agencies, such as the California Coastal Commission. We're also adding a few new tools to our toolkit for communication and engagement this phase. That includes project team office hours, which I think you heard one of our council members mention. And that's a really good opportunity to be able to go deeper into detail with our technical team on specific topics. If that's something that you're looking for, I recommend finding out more about those and making sure that you're on our email list so you'll be notified about them when we have them. And then also pop-up events, which would be things like tabling at the farmers market or Fog Fest or showing up at the pier and tabling there so we can meet people where they're already going. And then notification methods for those. As many of you probably know, we sent out a mailer for this meeting, and you should have received that. So that's one way that we're making sure people know about what's going on. Also, social media, the Pacifica email distribution, Connect with Pacifica, that I'm sure many of you are getting, and then make sure that you're, again, on our project email distribution list so we can keep you informed of what we have going on. This is our timeline, and I just wanted to point out, this is also on one of the boards, so I won't spend a ton of time on it, but just wanted to point out that we are here in summer 2023 with our first public meeting for this phase of work. As we move into the fall and aligned with the design milestones that Aaron mentioned, we'll have a second public meeting in September where we'll talk in more detail about features and amenities, and then a third public meeting in December to review the preliminary design. So at this time, we're going to break from the presentation in full group setting and go back into the open house format. And I know many of you have already been here for the first part of this and are probably familiar with what we have here, but just to run through the different sets of information that we have available. Let's see, on the back of the room by Roland. Roland, can you wave? That's kind of the background information where we have the project purpose and need and schedule. Over here by Lisa, we have phase 1 findings. I don't know what corner of the room to call this, but with Lisa. And then phase 2A, in that far side of the room where Nick and Aaron are. Can you both wave, please? That's where we're introducing the phase 2A, and this is where we really want to collect your input on the aerials to tell us where you'd like certain features and amenities along Beach Boulevard. And over here, there's a table with comment boxes and comment forms, and we really encourage you to write down your comments there as well, so we can make sure that we have them in your own words. And just before, let's see, we have until 7:30 tonight, and around 7:20, I will reconvene us as a group to run through themes of the comments and feedback and questions that we're hearing, and also to talk about next steps for the project. So thank you so much, and we will go back into our open house. I invite you to talk one-on-one with our staff here tonight. Thank you. Hi, everyone. We're going to run through a summary of our comments tonight and cover our next steps in our last 5 minutes here. Will you help me ask people to stop talking kindly? I know. If we could slow down the conversations and regroup all together, please. Thank you. We're going to pause the conversations and come back together for a few minutes, please. Thank you. Okay, thanks everybody. I saw lots and lots of conversations going on, and I filled up 4 flip chart notes, 4 giant pages. So I really appreciate all the input and help that we're hearing here tonight. I just want to summarize some of the things that we're hearing, and I know this isn't going to capture every single thing that everyone has said, just the highlights for now, and we'll document this in a meeting summary, so you will see everything in one place in the meeting summary. But lots of conversations happening at all of the stations. In the overview station, it sounds like some of the common themes were about the placement, composition, and height of the wall, and questions about what informs those decisions. Also questions about responsibilities and decision-making authority between the city and the California Coastal Commission. And then questions also about project costs. In the phase 1 recap and findings station, there were also questions and concerns about managing the California Coastal Commission concerns. Questions about the project lifespan and the cost of the project, some themes here across multiple stations. And then also logistics of beach nourishment and sand allocation and how that would work. And then funding and where will that come from? I think all of us have probably heard about funding and cost from many people tonight. That's definitely a concern. And then in the station over here where we had the flip charts and the not so sticky Post-it notes, some of the comment, there was a lot of feedback there, and some things that I heard from multiple folks were about adding a continuous bike path along Beach Boulevard, balancing and sort of the challenges with both protecting property and allowing for beach habitat to be healthy and to provide access to the beach. Lots of ideas for improving the promenade area, from seating and having gathering spaces and grassy spaces to providing restrooms and having areas for dog walking amenities. Comments about storm drains needing to work better and to be better maintained or potentially replaced. Lots of comments about parking. Some people love it, some people hate it, everything in between. So some to add more, some to require parking, some to just not allow cars altogether. So lots all over the spectrum of input. So lots of challenges ahead as we sort through all of your comments, and we really appreciate you providing it to us. Again, please make sure that you're on our email distribution list so you'll be notified when that meeting summary is up on the website. If you haven't already submitted a comment form and you'd like to do so, they're on the table back here. We can hang out another 5 minutes or so to allow any final comments to be placed in the comment box. Visit the website to find summary materials from the previous phase of work and to sign up for our email list, which I think I've said like 7 times now. And then also we have our next 2 public workshops are tentatively scheduled. Here are the dates, if you'd like to mark your calendar. September 13th will be the workshop where we plan to talk about features and amenities. And then December 5th, where we plan to talk about preliminary design. So again, we will send out the details of location and time and everything like that. So join the email list. And that is it for this evening. Thank you all so much for being here tonight. Really appreciate your feedback and appreciate you being here.